Welcome back to Studio Chatter. Let's get a little history lesson about women serving in the military. Welcome Becki Knepper to our table.
Hey,
welcome.
Thank you.
Hello there.
This is going to be exciting.
Well, I hope so. I think I've got a lot of interesting, exciting stuff to talk about.
And I like that we've sandwiched you. Today is June 14th, the day we're filming this, which is Flag Day. And then it will air. But we're kind of sandwiching you between like Memorial Day, the 4th of July, the 24th of July, on Flag Day. Like, it's a perfect
Well, it's also the Army's birthday.
What is that?
Today?
It's the day that the Army was actually established in 1775.
Today.
Oh,
Today.
wow.
I did
On
not
June
know
14th.
that. That's interesting
On June
fact.
14th.
Okay.
So I'd love to know, what is your particular interest? So what brings you here?
Well, I served 27 years in the Army.
Wow.
And during that time, I was able to go back to the dedication of the Women in Military Service Memorial at Arlington National Cemetery in 1997. And at that dedication, there was a woman who spoke to us who was 101 years old that year, who had been one of the first women to enlist in the Navy when women were legally able to join the Navy in 1918. And when she spoke to us, she said, when I enlisted, I didn't have the right to vote. And that has just stuck with me, and it's just been an interest. I just think how much patriotism and love for your country it would take to enlist in a military whose commander-in-chief you could not vote for. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's just been an interest of mine and something I'm trying to educate as many people as I can about. Also on Saturday, this past Saturday, was the 73rd anniversary of the Women's Armed Forces Integration Act, which actually allowed women in 1948 to actually have a career in the military. Up until that time, they could enlist during a war, except for the Army Nurses Corps. All the rest of them could enlist for the war plus 6 months, but they couldn't have a career.
Wow.
Oh.
So
well, thank
1948, that was when that
was
act
passed. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
And so what have you learned about women then officially serving and covertly serving? How many were doing it under the radar before that time then?
Women have served since the beginning of time. I mean, we have Joan of Arc. Mm-hmm. But in America, we had women who dressed as men during the Revolutionary War to serve, along with Molly Pitcher, who didn't dress as a man but took over her husband's post. We've had women in the Civil War. They figure about 400 women served during the Civil War incognito.
So like other than nurses?
Other than nurses.
Okay. And does being a nurse counts, but that was all that they would let them do?
Or is this like combat?
Right,
fighting?
and they were not considered part of the military. They were the Army Nurses Corps and the Navy Nurses Corps.
Okay.
So they had no military rights. If they died, and they did die, and in the war, they had no military honors.
So I'm guessing, Becki, that with all of your history with this and your desire, like what kind of stories have you learned about some of these women?
Well, recently I just finished reading a book. Mm-hmm. Can I show the book?
Yes.
So this book, which is We Band of Angels, which is about the 78 Army nurses and 1 Navy nurse who were on Bataan when it was surrendered. They were there from 1941 through to when it was liberated. Mm-hmm. So they were prisoners of war along with the men who were prisoners of war. They didn't do the Bataan Death March, but they were there living under the same horrible conditions eating the same meager rations towards the end, the last few weeks of their captivity, along with the men. They were living on 500 grams of rice every other day.
Oh my goodness.
So, but they continued to work as nurses. And they weren't, there are all those horrible stories about what the Japanese did during that war to everyone. And these nurses were not sexually assaulted. And that was probably because they also took care of the wounded Japanese soldiers. And the Japanese men were just shocked that there were women in the military, because women in their military is unheard of at that time.
Okay.
So,
so you highly recommend this book, We Band of Angels?
Yes, it is very, very interesting and easy to read. And it's sad to me that a lot of people don't know about these women. Everybody knows about the Bataan Death March and the prisoners that were there, and I'm not taking anything away from those men, because they endured horrible, horrible conditions and abuse. But these women, none of them died, and that they think is because they worked together. Their head nurse was Maud Davidson, and she insisted on strict discipline and that they continued to work. Towards the end, they could only work 4-hour shifts because they were so emaciated and so exhausted. But in the beginning, in 3 months, they assisted in 1,200 operations that were horrible amputations and head and chest wounds. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just amazing what they put up with. And when they came home, they were treated very well at first, because our government, bless its heart, used them as a recruiting tool. So they had tailored uniforms while they're in the hospital recuperating, because when they came, they were working with malaria and beriberi and dysentery, but they continued to work to take care of these. At one time, there was 9,000 men in one hospital.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible.
But then when they were through using them as a recruiting tool, they were just mostly forgotten about.
Okay.
And Maud Davidson was put in for this Distinguished Service Cross because of her leadership and her ability to get these women through that almost 3 years of captivity without losing one, with continuing to take care of those men who many would have died without their care. And it was downgraded to a Legion of Merit. They said she wasn't in an appropriate leadership position for that high of an award.
Oh my goodness. Well, in your experience and in these history lessons until now, what has been the biggest change, do you think, for women that are serving now?
Well, back when they established the Women's Army Corps, which was in 1942, if women got married, they had to get out.
Oh.
I'm not sure when the date was, but somewhere between the 50s and when I joined, if women got pregnant, they had to get out. So there have been all these changes that women have fought for, which has allowed the women who are serving now, it's been the stepping stones for the women who are serving now that are able to be married, have children, work in any field in the entire military, that they can physically qualify and mentally qualify.
Okay.
What is your highlight of your service to our country?
That's a good one, Angie.
Oh, it'll be kind of sappy, but
I like that.
I was stationed near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my last 6 years in the Army. Oh, darn. My highlight was meeting my husband.
Okay. And that too. Good.
Was he in Pittsburgh?
Yes, he was.
Okay. But besides that, of course.
The second highlight.
And then he encouraged me to have my retirement ceremony at Fort Myer, Virginia, which is where the soldiers that guard the Tomb of the Unknowns are stationed.
Wow.
And so it was amazing. There were 13 of us that retired had the same retirement ceremony. They do it once a month. We had Pershing's own Army band there.
Wow.
And we had the old guard, the company dressed in the colonial uniform.
Wow.
And they don't do that anymore.
Oh, they still do
They
it.
still dress in that
Oh,
old
yes.
uniform. Okay.
Yeah, it's just for special ceremonial
Okay.
occasions. And then we had a company of the soldiers that guard the Tomb of the Unknowns in their dress blues. And the senior person who was a colonel got to do a pass and review with those troops. They were all standing at attention in formation. And then we all lined up. They played the Army song, and we're standing at attention, and the tears are just rolling down my face. And there was another sergeant first class standing next to me, and all of a sudden I felt her arm come up, and she's patting me on the back.
How sweet.
How special. And that's not sappy. I just think that's
No.
really neat.
Well,
That's
Becki,
amazing.
Thank you for your service, not only in the Army, but here locally in our American Legion. You guys are so active. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank
So
you for being
appreciated.
here.
Thank you
And
for
thank you for
stopping by.
stopping by and
Thank you.
helping us all
You are
understand.
welcome.
Thank you
the-
all
Thanks
around.
for the opportunity to try and pass on some things I've learned.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Coming up on Studio Chatter, the drought and how it will affect us all. We'll talk about that next.